Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe breaks his silence on the recent protests. Addressing a crowd at a funeral in Heroes Acre, Mugabe denounced the popular pastor Evan Mawarire, who this month led anti-government protests. The 92-year-old head of state accused the pastor of urging Zimbabweans to engage in violent protests, questioning whether he was a true preacher or not.
After weeks of protests over his regime, Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe finally speaks out. The 92-year-old used a funeral address to express anger over the recent anti-government protests. The longtime leader denounced popular pastor Evan Mawarire, who has become the figurehead of the demonstrations.
Mawarires and those who believe in that way of living in our country, well, are not part of us. You can't urge people to adopt violent demonstrations as the way of life or the way of solving grievances. No. We will say no. Forever no.
Zimbabwe has seen a surge in protests in the last few weeks. The demonstrations highlight a long simmer frustration in the southern African country. Earlier this month, many offices, shops and some government departments were closed for a one-day national strike against the country's worsening economic crisis. Mugabe accuses Pastor Mawarire of urging Zimbabweans to engage in violent protests, questioning whether he is a true preacher.
Find another environment. If you are a pastor, I don't know if he's a man of religion. A man of religion, we would hope, would preach biblical peace.
The country's long-standing economic troubles have deepened in recent months, with the government now struggling to pay civil servants. Mugabe, who has crushed almost all signs of dissent in his decades in power, has vowed to stand again for re-election in 2018. His wife Grace is tipped as a possible successor. Bureau Report, ANN7.
Now, I am now joined by Zimbabwean activist and leader of the #Tajamuka movement from Zimbabwe, Promise Makwananzi and Tino Mambeu, and also the Tajamuka organizer from the South African diaspora. We also have the pleasure of having Zanu PF District Chairperson Kennedy Mandaza. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'll start with you, Kennedy. Quite a lot of scrutiny there on the party. The corruption of the current government at the moment. What is Zimbabwe's reaction or take on this, and what can the government say about this corruption?
Well, thank you so much, and good evening to your viewers. As a party and also as a government, it is common knowledge that we do not condone corruption. As a party, for quite a number of years, we have spoken so much about corruption, and we have, of late, I think people have seen the government putting in place the Anti-Corruption Commission in order to deal with corruption that has taken place in the country. And whilst we recognize that people have a voice that they have to air, it should be understood that in the context of the Constitution, the protest or any contestation or any decision, and whatever the government would have done, whatever political party would have done, it has to be done in the context of peace. And any demonstration or protestation that has to take place, it should be peaceful. And what we have seen of late are protests and demonstrations that have turned violent. And these are the things that the president is also saying. If ever there are protests or demonstrations that turn violent, those we do not accept at all in the country. And I think there are quite a number of things. We are not naive on some of the things that have been taking place in the country, and that's why we are coming up with, and we have been coming up with so many of these programs that are meant to make sure that we correct some of the wrongs that have taken place vis-a-vis the extent to which sanctions have affected some of the things that we wanted to do, particularly in as far as we would want to turn around the economy.
Now, on the phone line, we are joined by a viewer. We have Adam from the Eastern Cape. Good evening, Adam, and thank you for joining us tonight. What is your comment tonight?
Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. What is your comment, sir?
I am a Zimbabwean, and I am very, very worried. I don't know which language can we use to tell Mugabe that he must step down. We suffered enough. We have suffered enough. If you go everywhere in the world, there are Zimbabweans there. We have been insulted. Queries, what we are educated. We want to go back home and build our nation. Mugabe must step down. He mustn't stop this thing of accusing Pastor Mawarire, accusing Tlangirai, accusing ABCD. No, we don't want him in power. Mugabe last win election in 1980, if I'm not mistaken. All these elections which have been calm, Mugabe was losing all those elections. And every Zimbabwean knows that. There is no one who is putting Mugabe to power, except very few people who are enjoying the benefits from Zanu PF. So I don't know which language can we use to tell Mugabe to step down. On my view, I think these countries, they let us down.
Well, thank you very much for your comment there. What are your reactions to that? He sounds very frustrated as a Zimbabwean. He says that, you know, the xenophobia that's going on, etc., it's difficult for him as a Zimbabwean, as you can hear from the distress in his voice there.
Well, I share the sentiments that the gentleman is airing. I'm equally frustrated at the failure by Zanu PF to make sure that Zimbabweans could also enjoy the fruits of the liberation. You will remember that when President Mugabe and his party and ZIPRA went to war, their main aim was to bring about fruits of liberation to the people of Zimbabwe. But what we have seen post-1980 is that they've actually enjoyed the grave train and forgot the people. And the wake-up call only came when MDC was launched. Then they went to the farms and they let people go over into the farms and all that type of nonsense that they did. It was supposed to be done in a way that makes sure that you do not deprive the masses of the food source. But, well, because there are people that are so used to power and they think being in power is the lasting solution and they have no other aim apart from being leaders of Zimbabwe, we find ourselves in this quagmire. I from the diaspora here, feel very strongly that the government of Robert Mugabe has brought misery to us. I was born after the independence, but for me, I do not seem to cherish anything that came as a result of the independence that they claim to have fought for. So we are saying to Zanu PF, thank you very much for whatever that we have done, but this is time for us now as the youth to take things into our own hands and make sure that we bring about total freedom to the people of Zimbabwe, to make sure that we once again will become proud of our nation. We are actually tired, and I go to sleep each and every time and I dream that I will find a bulletin that says President Mugabe has stepped down and there's a new order in Zimbabwe politically. But we have got a man, President Mugabe, who has made leading Zimbabwe his primary achievement, and he wants to be the last man standing when Zimbabwe goes down the bungalow. When Zimbabwe is no more, he wants to say, I have seen it all, the year is no more Zimbabwe. So we are saying no to that, and we will continue the fight to say Mugabe must go. We don't want to be with him.
Now, thank you very much. That was Promise just giving his reaction onto that. We also have on the line Alex from Cape Town. Alex, please do share your thoughts for tonight.
Hello.
Yes, Alex, you're more than welcome to share your thoughts.
You know, in Zimbabwe, the issue is about the African presidents and leaders. They have let Zimbabweans down a lot. Now, they were supposed, you know, it's very easy for an old man like Mugabe, like 92 years old. It doesn't mean that there's no people who are educated in Zimbabwe who know what they are doing, who know politics. Mugabe has been losing for so long, and I think he must go.
Well, thank you very much, Alex, there. Also a very strong comment from Alex there in Cape Town. Tino, what can you say about this? I mean, it seems the general consensus from the viewers is that they just, in a nutshell, they're sick and tired.
Absolutely. That is as clear as the sun. President Mugabe must and should step down with immediate effect and allow the country to go through a transition and to move forward. This has been, from at least the point of view of Tajamuka, that is our position. And we are saying that by the 31st of August, he must have outlined that transitional process to the country and pave way. He has to pave way. I'm very surprised by my colleague here, Mr. Mandaza. He's in the diaspora. He can't find a job in Zimbabwe. He has left his family to be here. But he's coming here to talk all this nonsense. Totally against the sentiment, the national sentiment in the country. President Mugabe has been there for too long, far too long. He has overstayed his usefulness. He must go. And we are saying, by the 31st of August, President Mugabe must outline a peaceful transitional process. For once, he has to be selfless, just for once, for the sake of the country that he claims to have fought for, that he claims to love so much, that he claims to defend so much. I think that the best defense he needs to give to the country now is to step aside and allow the next generation of leaders to pick up the pieces and rebuild our great Zimbabwe.
Now, also on the line, we have Michael from Midrand. Michael, what are your comments tonight?
Yes, Bev. Actually, I would like to start my comment by referring to the remarks that were made by the Secretary General of the NC, Tajamuka, when he was asked to comment about the situation in Zimbabwe. And then he said he doesn't want people, they can protest, but there mustn't be a regime change. So I'm just worried that the Secretary General referred to Zimbabwe. Does he refer Zimbabwe as Mugabe and Zanu PF? Because we have got millions of Zimbabweans staying in South Africa because they are running away from poverty. That's because of the system that Zanu PF has actually entrenched in Zimbabwe. So I want even the NC to understand that this country has got problems. We Zimbabweans, we come here to look for jobs. But there is millions of poor South Africans that we are competing for jobs. But now for the Secretary General of the NC, the liberation movement in Africa, to have those comments, because he should actually explain when he speaks about Zimbabwe, what does he mean? Because Zimbabwe is not Zanu PF. Neither Zanu PF is Zimbabwe. But when we talk about Zimbabwe, we talk about 15 million people that have suffered through the leadership of Zanu PF. So it's a high time that these African countries or the international community come to rescue the situation in Zimbabwe, because the other question that I've got is for your panelists, the one from Zanu PF. You know, what is the difference between Mugabe and Ian Smith, according to him? Because yes, he was a liberation hero. He fought the armed struggle. But he was given the mandate to rule Zimbabwe by the masses of Zimbabweans. So he cannot run the country as if he is running his own private entity or a farm. So the man from Zanu PF, I would like him to respond, to explain to the viewers what is the difference between Ian Smith's regime and Mugabe's regime. Because to me, Mugabe is a dictator A lot of people are suffering now all over the globe. If you go to Pakistan, if you go to UK, if you go to America, if you go to Canada, I can count until I don't know how many hours you can find all Zimbabweans. So is he saying that Mugabe must stay? On what basis should Mugabe continue the leadership? That's why I refer to the comments that were made by Mugabe to say that South Africa covered as well. But how many Zimbabweans are here competing with the South Africans? I will also give an example. If you have got a sister who is doing the same job like you are earning the same salary, but your sister goes to go and drink beer with your money, and the next morning your kids are coming to your home to actually ask you for food because of your irresponsible sister. That is exactly what is happening in Zimbabwe.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. There, I'm going to have to cut you off so that we can give our panel a chance to respond to your comment there. Thank you so much for calling in tonight. What is your comment, Kennedy? He seems quite frustrated as well. What is your comment on the allegations and the promises, and also Gwede Mantashe's comments?
Our position as Zanu PF has always been very clear. The leadership of Zimbabwe is decided by the Zimbabweans. It is the responsibility of Zimbabweans to make sure that come election time, they choose a leader of their choice. And each time we have had elections, we have had people voting for President Mugabe. And in the party itself, we have also over the years been voting for President Robert Mugabe to be the leader of the party. And eventually he became the leader of government by virtue of also winning elections. So we still have 2018 coming. And if anyone has a mission to change the leadership of Zimbabwe, then that can only be done through the ballot box. And that's why year in, year out, Zimbabwe, after every 5 years, we have always had elections in order for the people of Zimbabwe to be given the opportunity to choose a leader of their own choice. In Zanu PF itself, we have had congresses coming in as expected by the Constitution in order to change the leadership. And as we speak right now, we in Zanu PF, we are cognizant of what we need to do as far as leadership renewal in our party is concerned. And the dynamics of what we need to do are best known to the people that are in Zanu PF. And any interrogation in that regard with respect to who will take over and when President Robert Mugabe is going to leave Zanu PF as the leader, it is best known through the structures that are enshrined in the constitution of Zanu PF. And I'm not so sure whether it is constitutionally in the new constitution that came into effect recently, whether one of the things that are in the constitution is to say the president can leave before the end of his tenure of office as given, because this is a mandate that has been given by him, by the people in 2013, to run the country until 2018. And we are not saying as Zanu PF, people should not raise concerns in areas that they may feel that the government is not doing well. And that is why we have allowed parties to emerge in Zimbabwe, to make sure that they give the checks and balances that are needed in any democracy, to make sure that the government in place on that particular day can live up to the expectations of the people of Zimbabwe. So we in Zanu PF, we are saying that we have given a mandate that was given to him overwhelmingly in 2013 to run the country until 2018. So let us wait until 2018, campaign as much as we can, and change the leadership of President Robert Mugabe if we so want, because that can only be done democratically through the ballot box. Then the issue of Comrade Gwede Mantashe, he was up to the point. Liberation movements, we feel we are also a liberation movement. We feel we are under threat. And there is no one else who can safeguard the liberation movement other than the people that are in the liberation movements. That's why Frelimo, SWAPO, ANC and Zanu PF feel strongly that we must work together in order to make sure that we maintain that which we went to war for.
Now, I spoke to Pastor Evan Mawarire yesterday on the show, and he was quite vocal about how protesters and activists are being suppressed in Zimbabwe. Let's listen in. We will continue the debate after the soundbite.
You know, we have a number of options because what we are doing here is we are trying to get our government to realize that the citizens have needs, that the reality on the ground is not something that we are just dreaming up, but it is a hard life. And so part of our goal with the citizenry is to get government either to a negotiating table or just for them to change things the way that we are asking them to change things. We have not required of them to, move mountains. We've just said, do not put austerity measures when we are under crisis. Instead, why don't you put in place stimulus packages? Why don't you put in place stimulus, policies? So, for example, giving us import licenses for basic commodities is not going to help because we have 85% unemployment. And the people that have been importing these goods from South Africa and other countries, it's a job for them. They've created their own jobs where government has failed. Government promised us 2.2 million jobs. We have lost, in fact, hundreds of thousands of jobs since then. They promised us investment. We have not seen any investment. Companies and businesses have shut down continuously since then. So these are demands we are laying to government, saying, respond to your citizenry. Even if you couldn't respond fully, at least inspire the citizenry. At least reassure them. At least come out and show that you are for us. And unfortunately, our government has reacted by intimidating, has reacted by arresting, and has reacted by being heavy-handed on the citizenry, which is not the response that we're looking for. And it makes anti-government sentiment strong. I think the future plans for the movement are found in the seeds of the movement. And the seeds of the movement were to create citizens that are bolder. In Zimbabwe over the years, we have been afraid to speak as a citizen for various reasons, amongst them being the intimidation over the years, and of course the brutality that we have experienced when people have spoken out. So going forward, our goal remains emboldening citizens. We cannot back down from this space ever again. And our goal now is to grow further and further into becoming citizens that speak more and more. But looking ahead, we have elections coming up in 2018. And if Zimbabweans are not happy with the current government that they have, then it's time for every Zimbabwean to start making preparations to change that within the confines of the law and constitutionally. You know, I have been very effective as a pastor and also as a citizen. And I think that this needs to play out as much as it can. And I think sometimes trying to get into politics or trying to form it into a political movement may actually kill the impact that it has. I think Zimbabweans are waking up now to the fact that they will be able to make a choice and that they will be able to galvanize around the choice that they want for themselves in 2018.
Now, how do we go about mobilizing the people? Pastor Mawarire had a lot of important points that he put across there. What is your reaction on his words, and what would you like to say, basically?
Well, I agree with most of the things that he has said, except to say that we don't believe that this government needs another chance. They have been there since 1980.
So this is it.
This is it.
Done. They're tired.
There is nothing they are going to change. There is no stimulus they are going to bring. There is no inspiration they are going to give to the people, as the pastor suggests. So we are saying that this government must just step down. This is totally lawful. In any democracy, if a government fails, it can and it should be called back by the people that elect it, and elect a new government that will be effective and that will fulfill its promises. And we are going to continue to mobilize citizens precisely towards ensuring that we pressure this government to step aside and facilitate the transition to a better and greater Zimbabwe.
Do you feel like the government is done and dusted? Is this it? Or do you agree with your counterpart here? And what are your reactions also to Pastor Mawarire's words?
Well, I would like to thank him so much for having the courage to start the movement that he has started, which is what we have been yearning for in Zimbabwe, to say, well, we have got opposition, but we needed the voice that kept on saying at all times that things are not so good. And we believe that that is the right way to go, but at the end of the day, you cannot negotiate with a hungry man. I come in front of you as an hungry man, and I've got thousands and thousands of people out there that have got the same sentiments that I have, that are going through the same situation that I'm going through. So to say that we need another 2 years of suffering is quite being, you know, it's being inhuman to say we should allow these guys to continue riding on our backs for another 2 years. And to make matters worse, to just try and terrify us more, they've actually made it a point that the 94-year-old man will be the president in presidential candidate in 2018. So it goes to show that they do not really have the plight of the masses. They do not care about the status of the roads. There are no roads in Zimbabwe. They do not care about the status of our clinics and health system. There is nothing happening there. They simply do not care. So if to say that we should wait for elections and try to make changes, then it's a very, very long and tedious way. And we have also realized that we have gone to elections and the government has failed to make the level, the playing field quite level. They've always come up with chicanery to frustrate the voters. They do not want to register voters. They always have these tricks. And to say that we need the election under such circumstances is as good as repeating the same mistakes time and again. We are not prepared for elections. I personally wouldn't want to go into an election where Zanu PF has maintained its chicanery, where it has maintained the status quo, and say we're
Tino,
just
I'm going to have to cut you off there. I do apologize for interjecting, Mr. Kennedy. What is your reaction to that, the roads, and what Mr. Mawarire had to say?
Well, as Zanu PF, we, as per the Constitution, the Zimbabwean Constitution, people have a democratic right to air their voices to the current government or to any other organization. So it is within their right, for as long as it is done peacefully, to air their grievances and make sure that their grievances are taken to the right people. What we detest as Zanu PF is when these protests and demonstrations take a violent nature. And with regards to the promises that the party has always made, and which we continue to make, as we speak right now, there are quite a number of other things that are taking place. I can assure you that I think they are quite aware of that the Bait Bridge Mashingo Road will be taking off as shortly. Contracts have been signed, and what is left is for us to begin to see the dualization of that road. So there are attempts that the government are doing to make sure that the things that the people have been saying over the years, they are corrected. And we remain confident that we are moving in the right trajectory to make sure that things that need to be attended to are attended to. And come 2018, if people listen to the voice of reason, they will return Zanu PF in power.
Yes.
In the party, in Zanu PF, people have been asked to choose a leader. And we have returned President Robert Mugabe. And as in government, they are the people who have voted for President Robert Mugabe and given him a mandate to run the country until 2018. So if a democratic space is created and people have to use it to the best of their ability, and likewise, in 2018, that democratic space is also going to be there. If people are saying President Robert Mugabe is not the best of the leaders, then it is up to them. But what we have seen is when we started to sell the party, our party Zanu PF, we win the votes. And for as long as we do that, we'll continue to run the country and run it to the best of our abilities with the people aspirations in our heart. We do not do these things for ourselves, the majority of the people. We know that people have allegations of ministers doing this, corruption and so on. Those are things that even the government have also spoken about. But all what we do it for the interest of the people of Zimbabwe.
Well, just final thoughts there really quickly, in about 5 seconds if you can. What is your closing statement on it today?
My closing remark will be to say that to Africans the world over and the international community, everybody, let's really support one another in this effort. And to just answer as well from the chipo that has just called, in terms of the protests coming up here and there, we are going to unite at the end, and we are working on the modalities for unity. But it's very important because you are fighting a system that is so entrenched, so we want to actually exhaust them by having protests in such a way that will work for us. But again, we have got a problem with the gentleman here. I'm really frustrated by the comment that he continues to make, to say that they will continue to rule as long as they want, because they know they are stealing elections. They are actually rigging their way into there. So we have a serious problem, but we are going to mobilize the people.
All right, thank you very much. And last words from you, Promise.
My last words is that we, the citizens of Zimbabwe, have the power to change our situation. And we need to work collectively together to complement each other's strengths, to maximize on our strengths. This flag, what is their strength? Tajamuka, what is our strength? And all the other social movements that are coming up. We combine ourselves, we throw away fear and confront in a very peaceful but resolute manner and drive out this criminal government of Robert Mugabe.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on stage here.